Let's start with a simple question. If inflation hurts everyone, why does it keep happening? Why do governments say they want low inflation, but somehow always end up with more of it? This video is not about blaming politicians or central banks. It is about understanding choices. Because when economies are under stress, governments are not choosing between good and bad. They are choosing between bad and worse. And once you understand that choice, inflation stops feeling mysterious. When people hear the word collapse, they imagine a recession, job losses, markets falling, hard times. That is not collapse. Collapse looks like banks closing suddenly, cash withdrawals limited, businesses unable to pay staff, supply chains stopping. Collapse happens fast, and when it happens, trust disappears. People stop trusting banks, they stop trusting money, they stop trusting the system itself. Once that trust is gone, nothing else works properly. Ask yourself, if tomorrow you could not access your money, how long would society stay calm? Collapse is not just economic, it is psychological. From a government's point of view, collapse is uncontrollable. You cannot manage panic, you cannot explain it away, you cannot slowly fix it. When collapse happens, governments are blamed immediately. Protests increase, political legitimacy disappears. No government survives being associated with total failure of money. That is why collapse is always avoided if any other option exists. Even governments that talk about discipline change their mind when the system is at risk, because collapse ends authority. Inflation does not. Inflation hurts, but it hurts differently. It does not arrive all at once. Prices rise slowly, paychecks lag behind, savings lose value quietly. Most people experience inflation individually, not collectively. You notice, food costs more, rent increases, bills rise, but it does not feel like a single event. This matters. Inflation spreads pain over time. Collapse concentrates pain instantly. From a control perspective, inflation is manageable. Collapse is chaos. Here is the key point most explanations avoid. Modern economies are built on debt. Governments borrow, businesses borrow, households borrow. Debt is not the problem, but too much debt creates a dilemma. If money becomes more valuable, debts become harder to repay. This is deflation. Deflation sounds good in theory. In practice, it crushes debtors. Inflation does the opposite. It quietly reduces the real value of debt. If you owe £100,000 and prices double over time, that debt is easier to repay in real terms. This benefits governments, large borrowers, highly leveraged systems. Collapse stops repayment entirely. That breaks everything. So inflation becomes the least damaging option. This is where frustration comes in. People who save feel punished, and they are not wrong. Inflation transfers value from savers to borrowers, from cash holders to asset owners. This is not personal, it is structural. Savings represents stored effort. Inflation reduces stored effort to keep the system moving. Ask yourself, in a system built on borrowing, who is more important, the person who saves quietly or the person who keeps spending? The answer explains policy choices. Inflation is rarely explained as a choice. Instead, it appears fragmented. Energy prices rise, food shortages happen, supply chains break, companies raise prices. Blame is spread everywhere. This creates confusion, and confusion prevents accountability. With collapse, there is no confusion. Everyone knows something failed. Inflation works best when people argue about causes instead of questioning incentives. Central banks are often portrayed as villains. That misses the point. They operate inside a debt-based system. Their primary job is stability, not fairness. When forced to choose between higher inflation or systemic collapse, they choose the option that keeps the system functioning, even if it erodes purchasing power. This is not morality, it is triage. This pattern is old. Every heavily indebted society eventually faces this choice. Too much debt, too many promises, too little room to adjust. Inflation becomes the pressure release valve, not because leaders want it, because alternatives are worse. The real question is not, why is inflation happening? The real question is, what is the alternative and who would it hurt more? Once you think this way, inflation stops being confusing, it becomes predictable. Governments prefer inflation over collapse because inflation preserves control. Collapse removes it. This does not mean inflation is good. It means it is chosen. And once you understand that, you stop reacting emotionally and start thinking strategically.